Hello and welcome to Eva's House of Spirit. This is Eva and today we're going to make lavender shortbread cookies. That said, I have your attention here on the table. These cookies are really simple to make. You don't need a lot of ingredients. The first thing you're going to need, now if you haven't watched my videos on flavored sugars in magical working, you might want to go back and check those out, especially the one with the sugar infusing tutorial. With it, with that sugar infusing method, I made lavender confectioner sugar specifically for this recipe. I was planning to make this recipe. This has sat for at least 2 weeks, maybe more, and I've tasted it. I think the flavor is very nice. And we're going to use this to make lavender shortbread cookies today. So yeah, if you haven't checked out those videos, I do recommend you go back and check them out. That said, what you first need is you need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, sifted. I don't really have a sifter, but I'm probably just going to go through it with my fork when I combine the sugar and the flour before I cut in the butter. The next thing you're going to need is 1/2 cup of butter or margarine chilled. I, for convenience, went with just using a stick of margarine because I was feeling lazy today, and 1/2 cup equals 8 tablespoons, and 8 tablespoons make up a stick of butter. So we're just going to keep it convenient. We're just going to go with the stick. Then we're going to need 1/4 cup of infused sugar. Or, if you're not using sugar that you've infused, what you could alternately do is use 1/4 cup of confectioner sugar, just plain confectioner sugar, and then you can add 1 or 2 tablespoons or however much of a given herb that you want to add into your cookies. You can add that in addition. I find that infusing the sugar gives the sugar itself a nice taste. It kind of permeates the recipe more, I think, when you infuse the sugar. The cookbook here in front of me calls for 2 tablespoons of minced fresh herb and 1/4 cup of sugar. But I'm not using fresh herbs. I'm using dried herbs. And in my case, the herb I'm using, the lavender, is already incorporated and infused into the sugar. So there is really no need for me to add any additional lavender. I don't want to overdo it. But yeah, again, if you wanted to do regular confectioner sugar and add maybe a tablespoon of dried herb, or maybe 2 tablespoons of minced fresh herb, or however much of an herb that you feel you like the taste of. It may take a little bit of experimentation for you to find your preference, but you can do that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the flour and the confectioner sugar, and we're going to put sugar into the flour, and you're going to take your fork and you're going to not mince, oh my god, you're going to, I'm just all over the place. You're going to sift the confectioner sugar into the flour like so. This gets rid of any, what do you call it? Any like balls of flour or sugar that may have stuck together. It kind of lightens it up, makes sure it's really well blended together. Alright, so that's done. And now we're going to unwrap, and I have a fork here. That's what I'm blending because I don't have a sifter, so I'm using a fork. Now we're going to unwrap the margarine. We're going to let that fall right in there. What we're going to basically do is we're going to kind of like mash the margarine into the flour sugar mixture. And it's going to kind of get like, first it's probably going to start kind of like crumbly, sort of like a pie crust, and gradually you'll build up like a dough ball. So that's what we're gonna do. It may take a little time and a little elbow grease. I first kind of cut up the stick of margarine, or again, you could do this with butter, or even you can measure out if you don't want to be lazy and just use a stick. You could actually, take out your little measuring cup and measure out. Like if you have actual butter, in a tub or crock, you can measure it that way as well. It's really, I'm just showing you like the basic of how to do this. And, you can kind of, knowing your kitchen and knowing what you have and knowing how cooking works, you can kind of adapt what I'm showing you so you can make these cookies your way. Now the recipe that I am going off of, originally it was a rosemary shortbread cookie recipe. I have made the roseberry, oh my god, I can't talk. I have originally made the rosemary shortbread cookies. I have already made those in the past, and I find the rosemary shortbread cookies are quite nice. I've never tried doing lavender like this, but when I did the rosemary ones, I used plain confectioner's sugar because I didn't know yet about infusing sugars. I used plain confectioner's sugar, and I believe I used 2 tablespoons of dried herb, and I didn't really have any kind of a problem. I did have to put the rosemary dried into my mortar and pestle though to crush it up into smaller pieces, because I will say nobody likes having like big sticks of rosemary in a cookie. It kind of gets caught in your teeth and no one likes that kind of stuff. So if you're going to do the rosemary shortbread cookies, I do recommend that you crumble up your rosemary so it's kind of a finer texture, a finer consistency. Alright, it's starting to get a little crumbly, kind of like how the beginnings of a pie crust would be. I think I'm going to have to get my hands in here. I did wash my hands before I started, but I have to take my rings off. Okay, now I'm going to work the cookie dough by hand, combining the ingredients. I don't mean to bore you, but I figured I'd show you the process, because hey, you gotta see what the process looks like. The book that I am referencing, the cookbook, they recommend using a food processor. They say, the way that they tell you to do it, they say, position the knife blade in a food processor bowl, and they tell you to add the flour, the margarine, the sugar, and or the herb. And they say process it until the mixture forms a ball. But I unfortunately don't have a food processor, so I have to use nature's food processor, which is my hands. So that's how I'm going with this. It's starting to stick together kind of the way that, again, like a loose pie crust would. I think it's going to need some more working though. See, it's coming into a ball. It just, you can see that it took me some working. And the reason why I'm showing you this segment of the video is not to bore you, showing you me mixing the dough. I'm showing this to you because I want you to see that it is a process. You can't get discouraged because at first it takes a little bit for that margarine or that butter to really, really blend with the sugar and the flour. Okay? Now I'm just kneading it a little extra to be sure it's absolutely blended. I'd say this is probably ready to be rolled and baked. We have a nice ball of shortbread dough. Just needs to be rolled out. I skipped over the part where I rolled out the dough and cut out my cookies. You can see here I cut out a bunch of nice moons and stars for Samhain. And the reason why I skipped over the rolling the cookies out is because I find that to be kind of pointless. I'm sure that you all know how to use a rolling pin. According to the recipe, you want to roll these out to about a 1/4 inch thickness on a lightly floured surface. We're going to bake these in a 325-degree oven. That's Fahrenheit. So if you're not going on the Fahrenheit system, you might want to do your math. Figure out what system you got that's equivalent to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to bake these for 18 to 20 minutes or until the edges are lightly browned. These are what my cookies look like after baking them for 18 minutes in a 325-degree Fahrenheit oven. If you want to bring some properties of lavender into your life and into the lives of those you care about, I recommend making these cookies, and while you're making up your dough, maybe you could put in the intention of, peace, harmony, love, healing, all good things, because lavender sort of has those associations. And with that said, blessed be and ashe till our next exchange. Have a wonderful Samhain.